Have you ever wondered why certain people slowly drift away from you without you even realizing why? It might not be their fault. In fact, it might be something you're unknowingly doing that's quietly chipping away at their respect for you. If you've ever felt this way, stick around, because these 10 habits could be holding you back more than you think. Before we begin, I would appreciate it if you liked the video, so that you can help me continue spreading Stoic philosophy. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do so and activate the bell, so you don't miss any future videos on Stoicism. Respect is one of the most valuable currencies in relationships, whether it's with friends, family, colleagues, or even strangers. But what if the very actions you take every day are causing people to lose respect for you? The worst part? You might not even notice it happening until it's too late. In this video, we'll uncover 10 hidden habits that silently erode respect. By recognizing these behaviors and taking small, intentional steps to change, you can rebuild trust, strengthen relationships, and command the respect you truly deserve. So let's dive into the first habit, because this one might surprise you. Habit number 1, breaking promises. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. When you break promises, even small ones, you send a powerful signal that your word cannot be trusted. Over time, this erodes respect in relationships because people start to see you as unreliable or indifferent. Think about it. How would you feel if someone you relied on let you down repeatedly? Breaking promises not only disappoints others, but also undermines your integrity. And in relationships, once respect starts to fade, rebuilding it becomes an uphill battle. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Imagine this. Jake promises his friend Sarah he'll help her move this weekend. She adjusts her schedule and counts on his support. But on the day of the move, Jake casually texts, saying, "Something came up, can't make it, sorry." This isn't the first time Jake has flaked on Sarah, but she doesn't confront him. Instead, she starts pulling back, avoiding plans and trusting him less. Jake doesn't notice the shift, but the respect she once had for him is already fading, and all because he didn't take his commitments seriously. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. Here's how you can avoid this. Only make promises you can realistically keep. Before committing, ask yourself, am I truly willing and able to follow through? If something unavoidable happens and you can't fulfill a promise, be proactive. Call the person, don't just text, and explain sincerely why you can't deliver. Then, offer an alternative solution. For example, if you can't meet on a planned day, reschedule immediately and stick to the new date. Keeping your word isn't just about others respecting you. It's about respecting yourself too. Habit number 2, over-talking or interrupting. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Respect in any conversation comes from balance, listening as much as you speak. When you overtalk or interrupt, it signals to others that their thoughts and feelings don't matter. Over time, this creates frustration and resentment, making people feel disrespected and undervalued. Imagine being in a conversation where you can't get a word in. It's exhausting, isn't it? Interrupting may seem minor, but it chips away at relationships, making others feel unheard. And when people feel unheard, respect vanishes quickly. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Take this scenario. Emily and her colleague Brian are brainstorming ideas for a big presentation. Every time Brian starts sharing a thought, Emily jumps in with her opinion, cutting him off mid-sentence. She doesn't realize it, but Brian is growing increasingly annoyed. By the end of the meeting, Brian feels like his input isn't valued, and he starts avoiding future collaborations with Emily. Why bother, he thinks. She doesn't listen anyway. Emily's habit of interrupting isn't intentional, but it's costing her the respect of her team. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To avoid this habit, practice active listening. When someone else is speaking, resist the urge to jump in. Wait until they've finished their point. If you feel tempted to interrupt, pause and mentally count to 3 before responding. This forces you to listen fully and gives others the space to express themselves. If you accidentally interrupt, apologize immediately. Sorry, I cut you off. Please continue. Respect is built through listening, because when people feel heard, they feel valued. Habit number 3, being chronically late. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Time is one of the most valuable resources we have, and being chronically late sends a clear message. Your time doesn't matter as much as mine. Whether it's for work meetings, social events, or personal commitments, consistently arriving late frustrates others and makes them feel disrespected. Over time, this habit damages trust and reliability. People may start to think twice before involving you in important plans, and you'll find yourself excluded from opportunities simply because you couldn't value their time. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Picture this. Megan is always running late, whether it's for lunch with friends or project deadlines at work. Her friend Rachel invites her to a coffee date at 3 p.m., but Megan strolls in at 3:20, offering a casual, "Traffic was bad." Rachel smiles politely, but feels annoyed inside. This isn't the first time Megan has kept her waiting. By the 3rd time it happens, Rachel stops inviting Megan out altogether. Megan doesn't realize it, but her habit of being late is quietly costing her relationships and the respect of those around her. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. Breaking the cycle of chronic lateness starts with accountability. Set alarms or calendar reminders to ensure you leave with extra time to spare. If you're prone to underestimating how long tasks take, add a buffer of 10 to 15 minutes to your schedule. And when something unavoidable makes you late, let the person know as early as possible. A quick text saying, "I'm running 10 minutes behind, just wanted to keep you updated," shows respect for their time. Punctuality is more than showing up on time. It's about showing you care. Habit number 4, avoiding accountability. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Avoiding accountability is a surefire way to lose respect. When you refuse to take responsibility for your actions, others start to see you as unreliable and untrustworthy. Whether it's a missed deadline at work or an argument with a friend, deflecting blame or making excuses creates frustration. Over time, people will stop depending on you and begin to question your integrity. Accountability shows strength of character. It's about owning your mistakes and learning from them. Without it, you risk damaging relationships and your reputation. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Imagine this. David and his team were working on a critical project with a tight deadline. When it was time to present the results, David was unprepared. Instead of owning up to his lack of preparation, he blamed his team for not sending him the materials on time. His colleague Sarah knew this wasn't true. David had simply procrastinated. After that day, Sarah lost trust in David. She couldn't count on him anymore because he refused to accept responsibility for his actions. It wasn't just about the project, it was about his unwillingness to be accountable. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To avoid this habit, start by owning up to your mistakes immediately. If something goes wrong, resist the urge to shift blame. Acknowledge the issue with a simple statement like, "I didn't handle that well, and I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." Taking responsibility not only helps you grow, but it also earns you respect. Being accountable shows maturity, integrity, and respect for those around you. Habit number 5, gossiping or speaking negatively about others. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Gossiping or speaking negatively about others can seriously damage your relationships and reputation. When people hear you bad-mouthing others, they start to wonder if you're doing the same thing behind their backs. It creates an atmosphere of distrust, and soon people will avoid confiding in you, fearing that their secrets might be spread too. In the long run, this habit isolates you socially, and you may find yourself losing the respect of colleagues, friends, and even family. It's important to remember that words hold power, and they can either build people up or tear them down. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Think about Lisa, who loves to gossip about her co-workers. After a long day, she tells her friend Jane, "Can you believe how Sarah handled that project? She's completely clueless." Jane laughs, but deep down she begins to lose respect for Lisa. When the team starts to notice Lisa's habit of speaking ill of others, they begin to keep their distance. No one wants to be the next target of her gossip, and before long, Lisa finds herself excluded from important conversations and social gatherings. What started as harmless venting turned into a reputation she couldn't shake. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To break the cycle of gossip, start practicing mindful speech. Think before you speak, especially when discussing others. If you catch yourself about to gossip, redirect the conversation to something more positive or neutral. Instead of criticizing, try offering constructive feedback when necessary. Show respect for others by speaking kindly about them, even when they're not around. By doing this, you'll build trust and demonstrate that you value the integrity of those around you. Habit number 6, seeking attention constantly. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Constantly seeking attention may seem like a way to feel validated, but over time, it becomes exhausting for others. People start to perceive this behavior as desperate or manipulative, which undermines their respect for you. When you're always looking for praise or acknowledgement, you're not allowing others to form their own opinions about you. This behavior can also make you seem insecure, and instead of building meaningful relationships, you end up creating shallow ones based on your need for validation. It's important to understand that self-respect comes from within, and relying on constant external approval can be draining, both for you and those around you. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Take James, for example. He constantly posts on social media about his achievements, always looking for likes and comments. If someone else shares an accomplishment, James immediately chimes in with his own, hoping to shift the spotlight back to him. At first, his friends were supportive, but over time they began to notice a pattern. James wasn't genuinely happy for others, he just wanted the attention on himself. Eventually, people stopped celebrating his wins, and his behavior started to alienate him. They respected him less, seeing his actions as more about seeking attention than genuine connection. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To avoid seeking constant attention, focus on building your own self-worth. Recognize your achievements internally and acknowledge them without needing others to validate you. Shift your focus from seeking attention to genuinely engaging with others. Celebrate their successes, ask about their interests, and show real curiosity. Instead of trying to be the center of attention, learn the value of listening and supporting others. This will build mutual respect and deepen your relationships. Habit number 7, acting condescending or arrogant. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. When you act condescending or arrogant, it creates a barrier between you and others. People start to feel like they're being belittled or disrespected, and no one wants to be around someone who makes them feel inferior. Arrogance pushes people away, even if it's unintentional. It can also make you come across as insecure, as overcompensating for a lack of self-confidence. Humility is one of the most respected traits in a person. When you're humble, you create a sense of equality and connection. No one respects someone who believes they are superior to others, and over time, that attitude destroys relationships and opportunities. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Think about Anna, a colleague who often belittles others during team meetings. She talks down to her teammates, dismissing their ideas with phrases like, "That's a nice try, but I think you're missing the bigger picture." Even though Anna's intentions aren't malicious, her tone comes across as arrogant, and people start avoiding her. Over time, her colleagues stop asking for her input, and she's left out of important discussions. Her behavior damages her reputation and the trust others had in her. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To fix this habit, practice active listening and show genuine respect for others' opinions. Instead of assuming you know best, ask questions, seek clarification, and acknowledge people's ideas. Treat others as equals and focus on empathy. Instead of dominating conversations, allow space for others to speak and engage with their thoughts. Cultivate humility by recognizing that everyone has something valuable to contribute. This shift will not only help you gain respect, but will also enrich your relationships. Habit number 8, being passive-aggressive. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Being passive-aggressive is one of the most damaging habits to both personal and professional relationships. Instead of expressing anger or frustration directly, passive-aggressive behavior comes across in subtle, indirect ways. Sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or silent treatment. This leaves others confused and frustrated, and often causes more harm than good. The problem with passive aggression is that it doesn't address the issue head-on, and instead, it creates tension that can build over time. It undermines trust and makes communication unclear. If you don't express your feelings honestly, people will start losing respect for you, thinking you're not capable of confronting problems in a healthy way. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Think about Jack, who's working on a group project. Whenever something goes wrong, instead of speaking up, he quietly complains to others, saying things like, "I guess we all know who didn't do their part, huh?" His teammates start feeling uncomfortable because Jack never addresses his concerns directly. They're left guessing if he's upset with them, and eventually his passive-aggressive comments damage his credibility. People stop relying on him, and the trust they had in him is lost. Over time, Jack's behavior leaves him isolated, as no one wants to work with someone who's unwilling to communicate openly. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To fix this habit, start practicing honest communication. If something bothers you, express it directly and respectfully. Instead of dropping sarcastic hints or passive comments, say exactly how you feel, whether it's frustration, disappointment, or concern. When you speak openly, you'll find that most people appreciate honesty and transparency. Focus on resolving conflicts in a calm and constructive way, without harboring resentment. The more you address issues directly, the more people will respect you for your clarity and integrity. Habit number 9, not respecting boundaries. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. Not respecting boundaries is a quick way to lose respect and damage relationships. Everyone has their limits, whether it's time, personal space, or emotional boundaries. When you ignore these, people feel disrespected and uncomfortable. It can cause frustration, resentment, and ultimately, distance between you and others. If you constantly overstep boundaries, it shows a lack of consideration for people's feelings and needs. Over time, this behavior can erode trust, and people may start avoiding you or distancing themselves because they feel their boundaries are being taken for granted. Whether it's repeatedly showing up uninvited or pushing someone to talk about something they don't want to, disregarding boundaries leads to unnecessary tension and broken relationships. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Take Sarah, for instance. She often barges into her co-worker Mike's office unannounced to chat about her personal life, even when he's clearly busy with work. Mike starts feeling overwhelmed, but instead of telling Sarah directly, he becomes more distant, hoping she'll pick up on the hint. After a few weeks, Mike stops engaging with Sarah, and their work relationship starts to suffer. Sarah has no idea why Mike is avoiding her, not realizing that her constant interruptions are a violation of his personal boundaries. By ignoring these boundaries, Sarah unwittingly creates an uncomfortable work environment. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. The key to fixing this habit is awareness and respect. Start by actively listening when people communicate their boundaries, whether verbally or through body language. If someone says they need space or don't feel like talking, respect that request. Make sure to ask before assuming you have the right to share or demand something. Establishing your own boundaries is just as important, and being firm but respectful helps create healthier relationships. Over time, practicing this awareness and respect will lead to stronger, more trusting connections with others. Habit number 10, failing to show gratitude or appreciation. And now that we've discussed the habit, let's take a closer look at why it matters. When you fail to show gratitude or appreciation, it can make others feel unimportant and undervalued. People work hard, whether in their personal or professional lives, and they want to know that their efforts are seen and appreciated. Ignoring their contributions or not acknowledging their kindness can create a sense of disconnect. Over time, this lack of appreciation leads to resentment, and people may feel less inclined to help you in the future. It's crucial to express gratitude, as it reinforces respect and strengthens relationships. When you fail to do so, you risk coming across as entitled or selfish, ultimately eroding respect and goodwill. To make this more relatable, let me give you an example of how someone might unknowingly do this. Consider James, who works in a team and always expects others to complete tasks without offering thanks. His colleague Emily helps him out with a difficult project, staying late to meet a deadline. Instead of thanking her for her extra effort, James simply moves on to the next task, as though nothing unusual happened. Emily feels overlooked and underappreciated, but she doesn't say anything because she doesn't want to seem petty. As a result, the bond between them weakens, and Emily begins to hesitate when James asks for help again. She starts to feel that no matter how much effort she puts in, it won't be acknowledged. Now that we've seen the example, here's what you can do to fix this. Focus on being more mindful of your actions and how they affect others. To avoid this habit, make it a point to actively express appreciation. A simple thank you can go a long way in making someone feel valued. When someone helps you, whether it's small or large, acknowledge it and let them know their effort matters. It doesn't have to be over the top, but genuine gratitude strengthens relationships. You can also make gratitude a daily practice by noticing the little things people do for you, even if it's just holding a door open or offering advice. The more you practice appreciation, the more natural it becomes, and the more you'll earn the respect of those around you. And now we reach the most powerful part of the story, the emotional climax, where everything changes. When you stop and think about it, these habits, these seemingly small actions, can slowly chip away at something incredibly valuable: respect. And once that respect is gone, it's hard to rebuild. Every time you interrupt someone, or avoid accountability, or fail to show appreciation, you're not just affecting one moment, you're eroding trust. Trust is the foundation of all relationships, personal, professional, and everything in between. Without it, everything starts to fall apart. Imagine the consequences of acting arrogantly. People don't feel comfortable around you. They pull back, and they start questioning whether you truly see their worth. Or think about being chronically late. Time is the one thing we can't get back. And when you don't respect someone's time, you're telling them their priorities don't matter, that they're not worth your full attention. Now here's the truth. Respect isn't just given, it's earned every single day, in every interaction. These habits, though, don't just hurt others. They hurt you too, because every time you fail to show gratitude or boundaries, you're unknowingly pushing people away. You're shutting the door on opportunities for growth and connections that could change your life. But here's the good news. You have the power to change this, to stop letting these habits define you. It's in your hands to become more self-aware, to catch yourself before you speak or act in ways that could damage your relationships. Start small. Every day, choose respect. Choose to be present, to listen, to appreciate the people around you. When you start showing others the respect they deserve, you'll see how quickly they'll return it to you. In conclusion, recognizing these habits and taking steps to change them is crucial for building respect and stronger relationships. By becoming more self-aware and making conscious efforts to improve, we can earn the trust and admiration of those around us. Remember, small changes lead to big impacts. To earn respect, you must start with self-awareness. Every habit, every action, and every word you speak shapes how others see you. Whether it's showing appreciation or being accountable, every choice you make either builds or erodes trust. The habits we've discussed today may seem small, but over time, they accumulate. And before you know it, they can change the way people feel about you. But the power to change is always in your hands. The key takeaway: self-awareness is the first step to earning respect. You have to look within, reflect on your actions, and be honest with yourself about how you show up in the world. When you take responsibility for your behavior, you create an environment where respect can thrive. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these habits surprised you the most? Was there one you didn't even realize you were doing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that helps you grow and become the best version of yourself.